1 Chronicles 12, 1 through 40. Devotional focus verse. For at that time, day by day, there came to David to help him, until it was a great host, like the host of God. 1 Chronicles 12, 22. Leaders cannot be successful without supportive followers, and as the complexity of a leader's task grows, ideally the support team around him or her will grow as well. Here in the United States, the word leader may bring to mind the President of our country. Today, the President has a cabinet that includes the Vice President and the heads of 15 federal executive departments, thousands of people who work under them, and a White House staff that numbers more than 500. However, that was not always the case. The first President of the United States, George Washington, had just 4 men who served as advisors and assisted him in carrying out his duties. Thomas Jefferson had 1 messenger and 1 secretary at his disposal, and he personally paid both of their salaries. In fact, it was not until 1857 that a U.S. president was provided with a personal secretary. Abraham Lincoln responded to his own mail, while Grover Cleveland often answered the White House telephone. Until the presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt, there were never more than 6 people working in the White House. From 1933 to 1939, in response to the Great Depression, Roosevelt expanded the scope of the federal government's powers. In 1939, he asked Congress to approve the Reorganization Act of 1939, which created the Executive Office of the President. In the decades since, the presidential support staff has grown exponentially to the thousands it is today. This chapter of 1 Chronicles continues the record of King David's support staff, the valiant and courageous men who pledged themselves to David and proved their loyalty to him. Our focus verse relates that men from around the country continued coming to David until the number supporting him was like the host of God. Many of us will never be called upon to be leaders, but we can be brave and determined supporters. Just as God drew the men of Israel together and aligned their talents, abilities, and resources behind David, each of us has a supporting role to fill in God's service. No matter what task is assigned to us, no matter if our names are listed on the ledger of mighty men or not, we know that God keeps a record. He notes every deed done for His cause, and one day, those who have been faithful to God and done their best for the advancement of His kingdom will be rewarded. Background information. After listing in chapter 11 the key military men who had accomplished heroic deeds on behalf of David, the writer of Chronicles expanded the record in chapter 12. This chapter provides 2 lists of military personnel who joined themselves to David and helped him weld together a powerful nation. Those who came to David at Ziklag, see verses 1 through 22, and those from each of the tribes who came to Hebron to make David king over a united Israel, see verses 23 through 37. The chapter concludes with a description of the 3-day celebration that took place when David was crowned king. See verses 38 through 40. Ziklag, referred to in verse 1, was the Philistine city where David fled for sanctuary when he was pursued by Saul. According to 1 Samuel 27, 5 through 7, King Achish gave the city to David and his army of 600, and it became David's military base. Notably, among the soldiers who came to Ziklag to pledge allegiance to David were some from the tribe of Benjamin, Saul's own tribe. See verse 2. Even Saul's own brethren had deserted him and had determined to aid David in becoming the next king of Israel. These men of Benjamin were trained in the use of bows and slings, so they would have been a valuable addition militarily. The Gadites, listed in verses 8 through 15, were impressive warriors who were expert in the use of shield and spear. In other words, they were skilled in both defensive and offensive combat. The comment that their faces were like the faces of lions, see verse 8, means that they were unafraid, fierce, and terrifying to their enemies. Perhaps, as proof of the courageous valor of these men, the writer described in verse 15 an instance when these brave warriors had crossed the Jordan at a dangerous time. In verses 16 through 22, David received soldiers from Benjamin and Judah at his stronghold. The precise location of this hold is uncertain, but it may have been the cave of Adullam described in 1 Samuel 22:1. Alternatively, it may have been one of the strongholds of En-Gedi, where David sometimes sought refuge during his flight from Saul. See 1 Samuel 23:29 through chapter 24:10. Or it may have been Ziklag itself as his home base. The fact that David went out to meet them, see verse 17, is an indicator of his trust in God, because he had justifiable reason to doubt their loyalty. Then the Spirit came upon Amasai, the chief captain, and he declared the group's favorable intentions toward David. With that validation, David received them and gave them leadership roles in his army. Verses 23 through 37 give details regarding the military men representing each tribe who came to David in Hebron. Special mention is made of the representatives of Issachar in verse 32. The statement that they were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do means they were capable of determining the right course of action for the nation. David spent 7.5 years in Hebron, and during that time his power and military support continued to expand. The final 3 verses of the chapter describe a great national feast in Israel.
One Chronicles chapter 12. Now these are they that came to David to Ziklag, while he yet kept himself close because of Saul the son of Kish, and they were among the mighty men, helpers of the war. They were armed with bows, and could use both the right hand and the left in hurling stones and shooting arrows out of a bow, even of Saul's brethren of Benjamin. The chief was Ahiezer, then Joash, the sons of Shammah the Gibeathite, and Jeziel, and Peleh, the sons of Asmaveth, and Brahah, and Jehu the Antothite. And Ismaiah the Jibonite, a mighty man among the 30, and over the 30, and Jeremiah, and Jahaziel, and Johanan, and Jozabad the Gederathite. Eluzai, and Jeremoth, and Bealiah, and Shemariah, and Shephatiah the Heraphite. Elkanah, and Jesiah, and Azareel, and Joezer, and Jashobeam, the Korites. And Joelah, and Zebadiah, the sons of Jeroham of Gedor. And of the Gadites there separated themselves unto David into the hold to the wilderness men of might, and men of war fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as the roes upon the mountains. Ezra the first, Obadiah the second, Eliab the third, Mishmanah the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth, Jeremiah the 10th, Mishbani the 11th. These were of the sons of Gad, captains of the host. One of the least was over 100, and the greatest over 1,000. These are they that went over Jordan in the first month, when it had overflown all his banks, and they put to flight all them of the valleys, both toward the east, and toward the west. And there came of the children of Benjamin and Judah to the hold unto David. And David went out to meet them, and answered and said unto them, If ye be come peaceably unto me to help me, mine heart shall be knit unto you, but if ye be come to betray me to mine enemies, seeing there is no wrong in mine hands, the God of our fathers look thereon, and rebuke it. Then the Spirit came upon Amasai, who was chief of the captains, and he said, Thine are we, David, and on thy side, thou son of Jesse, peace, peace be unto thee, and peace be to thine helpers, for thy God helpeth thee. Then David received them, and made them captains of the band. And there fell some of Manasseh to David, when he came with the Philistines against Saul to battle, but they helped them not, for the lords of the Philistines upon advisement sent him away, saying, He will fall to his master Saul to the jeopardy of our heads. As he went to Ziklag, there fell to him of Manasseh, Adnah, and Jozabad, and Jediel, and Michael, and Jozabad, and Elihu, and Zilthai, captains of the thousands that were of Manasseh. And they helped David against the band of the rovers, for they were all mighty men of valor, and were captains in the host. For at that time day by day there came to David to help him, until it was a great host, like the host of God. And these are the numbers of the bands that were ready armed to the war, and came to David to Hebron, to turn the kingdom of Saul to him, according to the word of the Lord. The children of Judah that bare shield and spear were 6,800, ready armed to the war. Of the children of Simeon, mighty men of valor for the war, 7,100. Of the children of Levi 4,600. And Jehoiada was the leader of the Aaronites, and with him were 3,700. And Zadok, a young man mighty of valor, and of his father's house 22 captains. And of the children of Benjamin, the kindred of Saul, 3,000, for hitherto the greatest part of them had kept the ward of the house of Saul. And of the children of Ephraim 20,800, mighty men of valor, famous throughout the house of their fathers. And of the half-tribe of Manasseh 18,000, which were expressed by name, to come and make David king. And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. Of Zebulun, such as went forth to battle, expert in war, with all instruments of war, 50,000, which could keep rank, they were not of double heart. And of Naphtali 1,000 captains, and with them with shield and spear 37,000. And of the Danites expert in war 28,600. And of Asher, such as went forth to battle, expert in war, 40,000. And on the other side of Jordan, of the Reubenites, and the Gadites, and of the half-tribe of Manasseh, with all manner of instruments of war for the battle, 120,000. All these men of war, that could keep rank, came with a perfect heart to Hebron, to make David king over all Israel, and all the rest also of Israel were of one heart to make David king. And there they were with David 3 days, eating and drinking, for their brethren had prepared for them. Moreover they that were nigh them, even unto Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali, brought bread on asses, and on camels, and on mules, and on oxen, and meat, meal, cakes of figs, and bunches of raisins, and wine, and oil, and oxen, and sheep abundantly, for there was joy in Israel.